Hello everyone, welcome to Wednesday Words. The old cliche is that you are what you eat. And on a physical level, this is actually pretty true, as our bodies are made up of the physical stuff that we consume. But today I want to think about how that idea might apply to our inner selves, our minds, our hearts, our spirits. And I think here too, that we are often made up of what we bring in. In this case, what we watch, what we listen to, conversations we have, the things we read. And I think for a particular part of our inner consciousness, we are made up largely of the stories that we hear, the stories that we are told, the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we come back to again and again. In my life, I know that some of the stories that I've fed myself have been particularly unhelpful. So when I was a kid, for example, my family watched a lot of the movies made of Broadway musicals. And the story of love, as told in Broadway musicals, is pretty simplistic. You find the one person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life. Usually you know them just by looking at them from across the room. Think of that dance scene in West Side Story, for example. And that's it. You're in love. You found your soulmate. That story did not serve me very well in the actual realm of human relationships, which are much more messy and complicated than that, and require, I think, a little more trial and error for most of us. There are other stories in my life, though, that have really fed me very deeply, and in very positive ways. So, for example, I am continually brought back to and moved by the story encapsulated in The Lord of the Rings, both the books and the movies. This is a story about people discovering strength they didn't know they had. It's a story about friendships forged across lines of difference. It's a story about people pulling together for a larger cause. It is, of course, also the story of the triumph of good over evil. It's a story of bravery and courage. And at times in my life, it has really kept me going, given me inspiration, and fed me deeply. Other stories that have been important to me are the story of Don Quixote as told in The Man of La Mancha. Again, a story about courage in the face of adversity and sticking to your true self, even though the world is telling you that it's wrong. And there have been many others. So I invite you to think about the stories that you are telling yourself, the stories that you are feeding that inner part of us that lives on stories. That might include the TV you watch, the books you read, the movies you go and see. Are you feeding yourself the stories that will sustain you? Or are you feeding yourself the story equivalent of candy corn? Certainly, I consume my fair share of escapist fiction in both television and novel form, but I hope that I'm at least putting enough in there to give my spirit the sustenance it needs when life gets challenging. So I encourage you to find the stories that for you keep you going, call you back to your best self, your truest values, give you courage in the face of adversity, remind you of who you are and who you want to be, and to share those stories with others as food for the spiritual journey. This Sunday in worship, we will be talking about being what we listen to and some voices that we might want to invite into the inner conversation. So I invite you to join us on Sunday at 10:30 in our sanctuary in Kingston, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks for watching. Bye.